The Galactic Station Meridian 7 housed over 40 species, each with their own dietary requirements, social customs, and survival instincts. The mess hall reflected this diversity with its sectioned zones, bioluminescent fungi for the Velkir, heated mineral slabs for the Kronoth, and standard protein dispensers for dozens of others. But in the past 3 cycles, one particular corner had become something of an anomaly. Commander Velthor, a 7-foot Kryn with iridescent scales and 4 analytical eyes, stood observing the situation with what could only be described as bewilderment. Before him sat 5 Lixian cubs, young members of a feline species known across the galaxy for their fierce independence, territorial nature, and complete disdain for other species during their formative years. They were seated at a rounded table, their silvery blue fur standing on end, small fangs bared, and their nutrient bowls untouched. "How long has it been?" Velthor asked his second officer. 23 minutes, Commander." They refused to eat. This wasn't new. For the past week, the cubs had developed an inexplicable behavior pattern. They would enter the mess hall with their caretaker, a stern Lixian elder named Morak, sit at their designated table, and then wait. They would sit in complete stillness, ignoring their food, ignoring threats, ignoring every diplomatic attempt to coax them into eating. The station's xenobiologists were baffled. Lixian cubs were notoriously food-motivated, driven by instinct to consume the moment nutrients were available. The mess hall doors hissed open. Hannah walked in, her standard-issue jumpsuit slightly rumpled from her shift in the hydroponics bay, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She carried a tray with what appeared to be synthesized teriyaki chicken and rice, a human comfort meal she'd programmed into the replicator herself. She looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from 12-hour shifts maintaining the station's oxygen gardens. The moment she entered, the change was instantaneous. Lukey, the smallest of the cubs with distinctive white markings around his eyes, let out a high-pitched chirp. The others immediately straightened, their ears swiveling forward, their previous aggression melting into what could only be described as eager anticipation. Hannah noticed them and smiled, the kind of warm, unself-conscious expression that most species found peculiar about humans, the way they could broadcast emotions so freely. She altered her path, walking directly toward the cub's table. "Hey, little guys," she said softly, pulling out the chair beside Lukey. "Waiting for me again?" The moment she sat, the cubs dove into their food with ravenous enthusiasm. The entire mess hall went quiet, dozens of beings turning to watch this bizarre interspecies interaction. Morak, the Lixian elder, approached with measured steps. His people were proud, ancient, and rarely showed deference to anyone, certainly not to humans, who were relative newcomers to the galactic community, barely 2 centuries into space travel. "Human Hannah," Morak's voice rumbled, a sound like grinding stones. "You have done something unprecedented." Hannah looked up, a piece of chicken halfway to her mouth. "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" "I know the cubs have their own section, but they seem to want—" "You misunderstand," Morak interrupted, his tail sweeping in what Hannah had learned was a gesture of respect among Lixians. "Lixian cubs do not bond with other species, ever. It is a fundamental aspect of our biology. Encoded in millions of years of evolution, we are solitary hunters, even as children. The fact that they refuse sustenance without your presence is—" He paused, searching for words. "Impossible." Commander Velthor had approached now, his scientific curiosity overriding his command duties. "When did this begin?" Hannah thought back, scratching her cheek. "I guess about 8 days ago. I was working late, came in for a meal during the off-shift. The cubs were here with Morak, and they seemed stressed. Station was going through those gravitational fluctuations, remember? Everything was shaking, alarms going off." She continued, almost embarrassed. "They look scared. I know they're supposed to be these fierce predators and everything, but they're still kids, so I just sat with them, told them it was okay. Sang them a lullaby my mom used to sing to me, 'You are my sunshine.' Real old Earth song." Lukey had stopped eating and was now leaning against Hannah's arm, a deep purring sound emanating from his small chest. The other cubs continued eating but kept glancing at her, their vertical pupils dilated with contentment. "Humans," Velthor said with something approaching wonder, "are the only species in the known galaxy that evolved alongside non-sentient pack animals, dogs, cats, horses. You domesticated dozens of species, lived with them, formed emotional bonds with them for thousands of years. So? Hana asked, gently stroking Luki's head. So your species learned to communicate across biological barriers in ways the rest of us never needed to, Morak explained. You read body language, vocal tones, emotional states of creatures completely unlike you. It's not magic, it's a skill your entire species developed for survival. And these cubs, he gestured at his young charges, recognize something in you that transcends species. A caretaker instinct, perhaps. A genuine affection that requires no biological relation. Hana shrugged, but she was smiling. They're good kids. Just needed someone to tell them they're safe. From that day forward, a seat remained permanently reserved beside the cubs' table. Station regulations were quietly amended. Hana's shift schedule was adjusted to align with the cubs' feeding times, not because of any emergency protocol, but because 50 different species